New Zealand's central bank has named a single AI model a threat to the whole financial system. Regulators name categories, never a product. This one named a model, then disclosed its own payment rail had failed for 3 hours. The tool that could defend the banks sits behind an export line this country cannot cross. If the shield is locked away, who carries the risk?
Let's get into it.
This year, a New Zealand regulator did something no regulator here had done before. It named one company's product by name as a threat to the stability of the entire financial system. This is the Hamberger report. I'm Andreas Hamberger, Enterprise Architect, Wellington. The regulator was the Reserve Bank of New Zealand. The product was a frontier artificial intelligence model, Anthropic's Mythos, and the document was not a speech or a blog post. It was the Financial Stability Report, the statutory assessment the Reserve Bank presents to the Minister of Finance twice a year and publishes in full. Regulators name categories all the time. They warn about third-party dependencies, operational resilience, concentration risk. What they almost never do is name one commercial model as a systemic concern in a formal stability document. The Reserve Bank did, and it is the first instance of it in New Zealand financial regulation. Notice what it did not say. It did not say the model had been used against the New Zealand bank. It said only that it is actively monitoring the risk the model may pose. That word monitoring is doing precise work. This is a regulator watching a threat, not a regulator reporting a loss. And for the board, that distinction is the whole starting point. A regulator does not name a model on a hunch, so it is worth seeing the capability underneath the concern. Anthropic's Claude Mythos preview scored 83.1% on a benchmark built from real-world software vulnerabilities. The previous flagship scored 66.6% on the same test. That benchmark, CyberGym, is built from over 1,500 real vulnerabilities in real open source projects, so the jump is not a laboratory result. It is a step in work that used to sit only with skilled human specialists. And the way the model operates matters more than the score. It reads a code base, ranks the files most likely to hold a flaw, runs the software to confirm the weakness, and writes a working exploit with reproduction steps, no human in the loop. Anthropic's own red team watched it build exploits in hours that experienced penetration testers said would take weeks. That is where dual use stops being a technical curiosity and becomes a governance problem. The capability that lets a defender close a flaw first is the same one that lets an attacker open it first. The cyber guide calls that split the heaven vector and the Skynet vector. One tool pointed in opposite directions. The Reserve Bank's concern was never really about one model. It was about a stack. The sector already runs on overseas cloud and overseas core banking software, and it is now layering an overseas artificial intelligence dependency on top of both. The report warns that leaning on a small handful of overseas providers concentrates technical, legal, and reputational exposure into a few upstream bottlenecks. Set that against the New Zealand market. The 4 major banks are all Australian-owned, so ownership sits offshore. Cloud and core banking sit offshore. The new intelligence layer, drawn largely from United States providers, sits offshore too. 4 layers, each governed substantially from outside New Zealand, stacked one on the other. The compounding is the risk a failure at one overseas provider does not stay in its own layer. It can propagate down the stack into the financial system at speed. The CyberGuide's cultural security envelope stops being philosophical here. The sovereignty of the system that handles New Zealanders' money is a governance responsibility, and that question does not stop at finance. On Friday, the 28th of August, this channel's permanent open source series, Free as in Theft, launches, taking the same sovereignty argument up from the software freedom side. Subscribe so it reaches your feed. If the model is the threat the Reserve Bank named, the outage it disclosed in the same chapter is the proof of fragility it already had on file. Its own high-value payment rail failed earlier this year. That rail is the exchange settlement account system, which the Reserve Bank operates itself, settling an average of 29.8 billion New Zealand dollars a day. The outage disrupted around $4.5 billion, roughly 15% of that daily balance. It hit every participant and cascaded across at least 3 further financial market infrastructures. The cause was a latent defect that had sat in the system since 2020 undetected until a rare combination of events triggered it. It was resolved within 3 hours. One caution has to be stated plainly. The outage was not caused by artificial intelligence. It was a technical residue from an earlier design. Its place here is as a demonstration of concentration fragility in motion. A defect hiding since 2020 is exactly what the CyberGuide's audit of intent exists to surface. The 3-hour recovery is the hour zero protocol working as designed. But the 3 infrastructures caught in the cascade each faced their own hour zero on a clock they did not start. This report is in the end a document about dependency, and dependency is where financial stability meets sovereign capacity. The tool that could defend a New Zealand bank is not at present a tool a New Zealand bank can hold. Following an export control decision, the United States authorized the release of Mythos-class defensive capability to a trusted ring of roughly 100 United States companies and federal agencies for vulnerability identification and defensive use. International institutions, United Kingdom banks among them, remain outside that ring, and no New Zealand financial institution is confirmed inside it. That is the structure of an export control regime built for national security, not a verdict on anyone's intent, but it leaves a settlement system clearing 29.8 billion New Zealand dollars a day, exposed to a class of capability its own defenders cannot yet hold. While the Financial Stability Board readies the framework, it will hand the Group of 20 in October. Financial market infrastructure is national infrastructure. Until sovereign access catches up with sovereign exposure, that gap is a board's to manage, not a regulator's to close. It would be easy to read a small country's central bank naming a frontier model as an outlier moment. The international record says the opposite. Within 3 months, 2 central banks in the English-speaking world named the same risk in a statutory report. In July, the Bank of England's own financial stability report went further, saying the cyber capabilities of current frontier models already exceed what a skilled practitioner could achieve, at greater speed and lower cost. The Reserve Bank of New Zealand published first. This is convergence, not New Zealand following a trend. The Financial Stability Board has set out sound practices for artificial intelligence in finance, with the final version going to the Group of 20 in October. The Bank for International Settlements has named an artificial intelligence investment bust among its top threats to financial stability. So the exercise for a board is not a briefing on artificial intelligence. It is 3 questions answered with evidence rather than assurance. Have we mapped where providers across cloud, core banking, and intelligence are themselves exposed to this capability? If one of them suffered a breach, this capability made faster to run, is our response documented and tested? If a court asked what this board did after the regulator named this risk, what could we produce? The Reserve Bank has done the analytical work. It took the frame it reserves for systemic threats and applied it in a statutory report to a named model and to its own payment rail in the same breath. The threat and the proof of fragility arrived in one document, from one regulator. In the language of the CyberGuide, that is a crisis compass, the reading that tells a board which way the landscape has shifted. Boards that were waiting for an authoritative signal now have one. There is a quieter channel in the report that most risk registers have not mapped. The Reserve Bank draws a direct line from artificial intelligence to credit risk, noting that if the technology costs jobs in some sectors, more borrowers may struggle to pay their mortgages. That is a chain from capability to employment to mortgage stress to portfolio risk, and it needs no cyber incident at all. The risk reaches financial stability through more than one door. What the report asks of a board is not alarm, it is a record. So if someone asked your board next week to show what it did after the Reserve Bank named a frontier model a threat to financial stability, what would it hand over?
That is the Hamberger report for today. If this was useful, subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more professionals find the channel. You will find links to everything we covered in the description below. I am Andreas Hamberger, and I will see you tomorrow.
like and subscribe.